Alright, Percy Jackson review is finally done. Now I can finally work on magic systems.
Water.
What? What the?
Earth.
Oh! Hey!
Fire.
No.
Air.
Can I help you?
Yeah, Netflix just released all 8 episodes of the Avatar reboot.
What? I just got done with the Percy Jackson review.
I know, we have no time. You have to move.
Alright, it's time to get serious. Let's talk Avatar: The Last Airbender. The live action one. The series. This is gonna get confusing. Look, I'm not a review channel. I started this channel because I wanted to talk about stories and magic systems and world building, but then Hollywood got on this nostalgia high and decided to create 2 reboots of my 2 favorite stories within a month of each other. And what is a girl to do? Like, if I don't talk about Avatar, I'm just failing myself as a human being and as a YouTuber. So let's be honest, before the show even came out, it got started on a pretty bad foot because the studio decided to release information that the characters were going to have some critical changes and that the show was going to be more like Game of Thrones, which just made everyone confused or angry. Now, as a person who's already seen the whole series, I can promise you it is nothing like Game of Thrones. Like, in the slightest. I don't even know why they made that comparison other than to just make people angry and get it talked about, which honestly could have been the whole reason. Who knows with these kind of things? Now, I went into this show ignoring everything that the studio had said and with an open mind and with very low expectations after what happened with Percy Jackson. So here is a spoiler-free review first for you guys who just want to hear my general opinion. This show wasn't bad. I actually enjoyed a lot of it, and there were scenes in this that genuinely made me happy. Now, it wasn't a one-to-one comparison. It wasn't the 24 episodes that you saw in the first season told into 8 episodes. There had to be cuts, there were changes, there were episodes added to other episodes. If you're looking for more of a one-to-one adaptation of Avatar, probably don't watch the show, it'll just make you angry. But adaptations aren't supposed to be a one-to-one. It's supposed to be flexible and feel free to change it, or what's the point of remaking it? But now the show kept what I already mentioned Disney Plus's Percy Jackson show didn't have, heart. They added some scenes that I think the fans of the original will actually really enjoy because I really enjoyed them, but they also made some changes to characters and to other scenes that I think fans will hate. So it kind of just depends on, does your love for the other scenes override the hate, or does the hate override the love? Kind of that. Would I rewatch the show again? Probably not, except for episode 4, which we will get into that. At the end of the day, Netflix's reboot of Avatar is kind of pointless. Like, at least with an adaptation of a book, you get that thrill of seeing the characters in the world come to life on film. But Avatar was already a film, and a dang perfect one. So if you're watching this because you're trying to decide whether to watch the animated series or the live action series, animated series. All the way. Every day, multiple times a year, watch the animated series. Like, if you haven't seen it, please go watch it. It's amazing. Yes, it was made for kids and it was on Nickelodeon, but the themes and the character conflicts that they go through are so deep, and honestly, in comparison to the Game of Thrones version, they're more adult. The live action actually felt like it was more focused to kids than even the animated series did. Which just has me asking, why did you make it live action? But if you're already a fan of the animated series and you're trying to decide whether you should watch this one or not, I would say don't listen to the critics. Rotten Tomatoes gave this show a 56, which blows my mind because Percy Jackson got an 86, I think. And honestly, I would rather watch this show than the Percy Jackson show. Like, the Percy Jackson series made me mad. I wanted to throw something at my TV constantly, and I was constantly yelling. Avatar did not have me that way, which is saying something. You know, this is progress. But it was a fun watch through. I only got mad a few times, which is a really good sign for me. I laughed, I cried. I would say if you have the time, go watch it. And come back here and tell me what you thought. I love your comments. Like, I love this back and forth that we can have and these discussions that we can have about our opinions. So please leave them in the comments what you thought. Like and subscribe if you like this kind of stuff, but now it's time to get to the spoiler version of the video. So if you don't want any spoilers, click off now, come back later. Okay? Okay, spoiler version now. Let's go. So I didn't have as many problems with this show as I did with the Percy Jackson show, so my review is a little bit less extensive. I just kind of wanted to give a general idea and scoring of what I thought about the different aspects of the show. So, first, the visuals were both my favorite part and my least favorite part of the show. Let me explain. So you have the amazing visuals where you have Heibai and Naya and the Face Eater. Those looked amazing. This is what I live for. I love seeing animated things or things in books being brought to life in live action films and seeing what they do with it. I think Heibai was my favorite because he was so creepy and I loved that. Honestly, that was like my favorite part of the show, was seeing these creatures being brought to life. That is another reason I would probably rewatch the show, is just to see those creatures. But if that's not your cup of tea and you don't really care what they look like, you might not like this part. And then also just the effects in general, the earth bending, the fire bending, the water bending, all of that was really done well, especially compared to the movie. If any of you have seen that, it's so bad. We're not going to talk about that. But with the majority, some things were a little slower than the animated series, which was kind of disappointing, but you know, you have a budget, you have a CGI budget, you have to work with what you got, so I understand where there'd be a few less impressive CGI elemental moments, if that makes any sense. But overall, I was impressed, I was happy with that. On the opposite side of the spectrum, I would say everything was a bit too contrasty, if that makes any sense. Like, the characters' clothes were too bright. You know, the blues were really blue and the reds were really red, and it just looked too clean. And I get it that they were adapting from an animated series, but kind of the purpose of a live action is to give it a real feel and to give it some nitty-grittiness, and it just felt too crisp. It felt like their clothes were just dry washed and put on them for the set, and there was no like dirt or anything added to make it feel like it was in the world. That's my kind of only opinion on the outfits. Other than that, the outfits I think look pretty good in representation of the characters. They just look too clean. Now the backgrounds also kind of had this problem of contrastiness. Everything like had a glare and a shine on it. I don't know how else to explain it. It just looked fake. And yes, I get it. There's green screen, CGI, things are gonna look fake. But you know, we've seen green screens before that don't look this fake. It just looked too shiny. I don't know. I just didn't really like that part of it. It felt too animated and too childish to really look at. And sometimes it was kind of distracting how animated it looked and kind of took me out of the realistic world. But other than the clothes looking really clean, the characters' representations are amazing. I think I loved every single character and their outfits and their actors and their hairstyles. Like, everything looked really great. I mean, okay, just look at the animated series character compared to the movie characters compared to the live action characters. The live action did really well. Like, I think they look amazing. Zuko's scar looks realistic. It's visible. He still has his ponytail. Iroh, I mean, he's working the beard. He's got everything he needs. I couldn't have picked a better actor for Iroh. I love what they did here. Aang's tattoos, they are intricate. They have designs in them, but they're still blue. Katara has the little swirly things. That's good. The Kyoshi warriors looked really cool. Like, I liked everything they did here with the characters, other than the cleanness. So I will give the visuals like a 75 out of 100. I think that's worthy. Obviously, with the adaptation of a 24, I think, episode-long series into an 8-episode series, you're going to have to cut out some episodes, you're gonna have to cut out some scenes, and you're gonna have to combine some scenes to make it all work. So I went into this knowing that was gonna happen and kept an open mind to what changes they were gonna make. And honestly, I liked a lot of what they did. Like, I'm actually really surprised with how well some of the scenes that they combined worked. Let's talk about them episode per episode. The first episode, Aang, was the combination of the animated series' first 3 episodes. And honestly, it fits them all in pretty well. I like what they did. They rearranged some of the things so that you actually see Aang's background first. I would personally like to see Aang's background later on in the story, because I think the beginning of Katara and Sokka finding Aang works a lot better story-wise, but that's just a personal opinion. So overall, I think it did pretty well. It cut off some of the time in the Southern Water Tribe, and it cut off some of the time at the Air Temple. But again, I think this is fine. They had to fit everything into a 1 episode, so everything they cut out, I think, was pretty reasonable. And yeah, the first episode did pretty well. So, episode 2. This was Kyoshi Island, and I am so happy they kept this one in. I think everyone liked Kyoshi Island. You know, that's where we met Tsuki. It's where we talked to Kyoshi for the first time, and it's just an all-around fun episode. Aang still talks to Kyoshi, so that's still good. She still tells him that being an avatar is about being a warrior, so we still have the same kind of themes going on here. And then we have this really cool scene where Kyoshi takes over Aang's body and like just wipes the floor with the Fire Nation. It is so cool. I love that they did this. We still have this back and forth romance between Sokka and Suki, which is great. I'm glad they kept that in for future episodes. Overall, Kyoshi Island, pretty decent. It's what I expected, honestly. Episode 3 is where things really start to change. So episode 3 is called Omashu, and they combine Omashu with the Jet episode and with the inventors from the Air Temple episode, if you guys remember what I'm talking about. Now you might be saying, wow, that is a lot of episodes to add into one thing. But honestly, I think doing these 3 episodes together really worked. It actually really surprised me how well it did work. So we have Katara hanging out with Jet, and we have Sokka hanging out with the inventor. Sorry, I've completely blanked on his name, so he's the inventor, I'm sorry. Which this really works, because in the episode with the inventor, Katara doesn't really have a plot, and in the episode with Jet, Sokka doesn't really have a plot. I say that, and he kind of does, because he learns about being a leader a little bit better, but I think for the sake of storytelling, I'm glad they did this, because otherwise they would have had to just remove Jet or the inventor, and I don't want either of those episodes to be removed because they're pretty important. And it works. Jet still tries to kill a bunch of people. Katara still stops him. Sokka still works with the inventor. He invents the air balloon. The inventor is still working for the Fire Nation, trying to sell them like weapons. And then we have this conflict between Katara and Sokka, both thinking that each other's friends are traitors, which they both are. But this also reflects the episode The Great Divide, that is just completely about Katara and Sokka not getting along and not trusting each other, and then learning to get along in the end. So they knocked that one out of the park too. So I guess this is actually 4 episodes. They combined 4 episodes into this one, and it works. Who would have known? Episode 4, Into the Dark, was my favorite episode. Hands down, I would rewatch it. I already said that before, but I would. If you're only gonna watch one episode, watch episode 4. It might be a little confusing if you just start on episode 4, but who cares? Just watch episode 4. Now, episode 4 combines Bumi, Secret Tunnel, and Zuko's flashbacks. Now, wait. Did you just say the Secret Tunnel? Yes, I did. And I know, Secret Tunnel doesn't come up until season 2 in the animated series. They went ahead and added it early. But I cannot deny the happiness that I felt when I looked at my husband and I said, wouldn't it be cool if Sokka and Katara had to go through a secret tunnel to get to the palace? And they freaking did! They went through a secret tunnel! And it wasn't just a secret tunnel, it was the secret tunnel. There was the story and everything, and you know what else? The minstrels were there! I was so excited. I feel like I'm getting too loud. But it was so exciting and heartwarming to see them there, and they looked perfect, they acted perfect, and they sung the secret tunnel song. I cannot tell you enough how happy I was. I mean, I was literally like a little giddy kid. I was up in my seat bouncing with joy. I probably looked ridiculous, but I was so happy. The happiness this episode brought me just kind of shows the love that went into making the show, right? Because if no love was put into it, that wouldn't have happened. They could have just left out the minstrels completely. They didn't have to have the secret tunnel song. They could have left it out. They could have left out the story, but they didn't. They added it, and it makes me so happy. And honestly, they probably added it in because season 2 has a lot of content, like a lot. And so they thought, well, it might get erased in season 2, so might as well add it to season 1. And I'm not mad. I loved it. I enjoyed it. I was very happy with it. I didn't even mention the cabbage guy. So this joke was handled very well. Like, the creators knew that it was an inside joke among Avatar fans. And instead of letting him scream his line, "My cabbages," they kept cutting him off, which just made the inside joke even better. You could see that the creators cared. They furthered the inside joke among us, and it was really great. Also, this episode added in some new information that we had never seen in the animated series before, and that was a relationship between Zuko and Iroh before his banishment. I really like this addition because, well, honestly, it makes Iroh feel more like a father to Zuko, knowing that he was there for Zuko all those times that his father wasn't. And yeah, that was implied in the animated series. I'm not saying this is a problem with the animated series. I'm just saying I like seeing these scenes. They make me feel warm and cozy inside. I like seeing the development of Iroh and Zuko. And we get this scene where Iroh is at his son's funeral, which we don't really talk about until season 2, but I'm so glad they added it in here. But he's at his son's funeral, and Zuko comes up and says something just so nice to Iroh. And in the background is the Brave Soldier Boy music, just playing lightly on a piano. I'm gonna be honest, I bawled my eyes out like a baby, okay? It broke me. The music broke me. And I watched it a second time for this video, and I cried again. So, for a show to be able to make me feel that, because I don't cry, alright? I don't cry. But for a show to make me feel that again, the same way that season 2 made me feel it in the animated series, it's just amazing. It was just done so well. Again, heart. It had heart. Episode 5, Spirited Away. So this episode combines the 2 parts to the Winter Solstice episodes, which is fine since it's a part 1 and part 2. Obviously, they go together really well. Sokka and Katara actually go to the spirit world this time. I thought that was going to be a little bit weird when I saw that in the prompt before the episode, but honestly, it worked pretty well. They used it to show us a little bit more about Katara and Sokka's, like, backstory and like why they struggle with what they struggle with. Also get the Face Eater, which I loved. I'm so glad they added him in. I first thought he was just gonna be like this humanoid thing, but then they brought him out as a centipede and he looked awesome and he was gross and I loved him. I do want to add in here that though I'm happy that they found room to add in Heibai and the Face Eater, I do think the plot to the Spirited Away episode was a bit lacking. We never truly see a resolution to Heibai. He was just kind of a small obstacle in their way, and then we forget about him and move on to other things. And now that I think about it, being in the spirited world didn't really add anything. It wasn't some cool, magical, whimsical place. It was just a blue forest. And seeing the owl here just makes me worried that they'll remove the library episode in season 2. But they do use the plot of Katara and Sokka being stuck in the spirit world to tie directly into the Blue Spirit episode from the animated series. With Katara and Sokka being in the spirited world, they were kind of like sick, which if you remember in the animated series, there's an episode where Katara and Sokka are sick, and Aang has to leave to go get the medicine and ends up running into Zuko, and that's when the blue mask spirit thing takes place, which actually in the next episode, Mask, is the whole blue spirit plot. So instead of Aang going to get medicine, he is going to help get Katara and Sokka out of the spirit world, and then he has the whole quest. It basically follows the episode pretty well, so nothing really to say there. I think the conversation between Zuko and Aang is actually a little bit better, I would say. I like what they did with it. They had more time to talk. And it still ends the same way with Zuko like blasting a firebolt at Aang. Overall, I like this episode. It's pretty good. Episodes 7 and 8 are just the Northern Water Tribe. So we do skip a lot of episodes in between these two, like the Fortune Teller, Bato, which is the waterbender Sokka and Katara know, the Pirates, the episode where Katara leads a whole group of Earthbenders against the Fire Nation troops. But I'm okay with skipping a lot of these. They weren't super plot related. I can see why we didn't have room to add them in, so I'm okay with that. The one I wasn't really okay with them skipping was the firebending master. If you don't remember this episode, this is when Aang finds a firebending master and begs him to teach him firebending. And the teacher is very slow at teaching him. He's like, you have to learn all this first, and Aang is impatient because he's a child, and he goes out and he firebends, and then he hurts Katara from firebending. Now, because of this, in future episodes, Aang does not want to firebend anymore, and he's scared of it. So this is actually a pretty core moment, so my assumption is they might add it in on the later seasons. Hopefully they do. Also, this is when Zhao and Aang fight for the first time, and Aang basically gets Zhao to blow up all of his boats because he realizes he has no control, and it's a really good moment. It's a really good scene. I wish was in the live action because we don't really have enough scenes with Zhao being crazy. Like, he just feels kind of meh, you know? He just, he doesn't really do a lot. Zhao doesn't really feel like a main enemy in this series, which I think is a bit disappointing. Episodes 7 and 8, I think, disappointed me the most. They just felt like they kept going on and on, like they were going too slow. Where there was moments where we just watched Aang as the ocean spirit just kind of looking around instead of destroying ships and doing really cool stuff. There was also other scenes where Zhao was looking for the spirits and he was just looking and we kept following him looking, and it just felt kind of boring. They changed a lot of things, like Yue was no longer betrothed to anybody. Sokka doesn't help lead the Northern Water Tribe anymore. Aang talks to the waterbending avatar before him, and nothing really comes of it. It's okay. It's okay to be left in, but the fact that it was just more boring scenes just didn't really have me excited. Katara and Aang don't get trained by Master Pakku, which is, again, kind of disappointing because Aang still hasn't done any waterbending yet, like at all, throughout this whole season. If we remove the last two episodes, I think my overall review of the structure of the episodes would be like a 76. But since the last two episodes do exist and they kind of make me the least happy, 64 maybe a 60. I don't know, I really didn't like the last two episodes. They really ruined my score for the whole thing. But like I said, if you watch any of them, episode 4, watch episode 4. So, let's talk about the main problem with this show. I said this in my Percy Jackson review, and I will say it until my voice gives out, which is probably pretty soon because I'm sick. But characters are the most important thing to your story. If you don't have good characters, you don't have a good story. Now, these characters, they weren't necessarily bad, all right? They had good dialogue. I think their portrayals were pretty decent, except they don't have their core flaws. For some reason, Hollywood has gotten on this kick that characters don't need flaws and they need to be perfect heroes. This is so wrong. So flaws are what make a character feel real. They make them feel relatable. It gives them something to improve or struggle with through their journey. Flaws are good, and Avatar the animated series does flaws so well, and they make a point to show you the character's flaws from the very beginning and even how that flaw is going to impact the character in the future. Let's start with Sokka, because you all know what I'm going to talk about here. Sokka isn't sexist.
What you're saying is extremely misogynistic.
Yes. Thank you.
Now, if you haven't seen the animated series, you may be saying, okay, so what? Why are all the fans mad that Sokka is sexist? Is it really that bad? Yes, because Sokka doesn't stay that way. Like I said before, flaws are meant to show character improvement. And by episode 3 in the animated series, Sokka gets his butt kicked by Kyoshi warriors, a group of girls that he thought couldn't do it. And he has to get on his knees, humbling himself, begging Suki to teach him what she knows. I love watching this character growth in the episode. And the first episode even foreshadows that Sokka's sexism will be trouble for him in the future. The show starts off by having him ignore Katara when she tells him she's caught a fish, thinking whatever his sister is saying isn't as important as what he's doing. And he ends up popping Katara's water bubble and splashing himself with water, losing both his and Katara's fish. The show was saying, look, Sokka is sexist, but it will come back to bite him soon. In the live action show, Sokka's only growth is realizing he can help people without being a warrior, which is fine and all, but it's just very simple for a whole 8-episode series. Animated series Sokka still went through this change, but he also went through a change realizing that women are just as capable as men, and learned what it meant to be a leader, which the live action show never really touches on. Now, Katara. Katara's flaw is that she is quick-tempered and holds grudges. This is shown in the first scene with Sokka when she gets mad at him for being sexist, and in her rage, she moves the water so much she splits a glacier in two. Which is how they find Aang, by the way. We can see that her rage can lead to deadly force, which if you've seen season 3, no spoilers, you know exactly how this comes into play. And it's awesome. In the live action, Katara is very timid and calm. And yes, she's supposed to be the heart of the group. She's supposed to be the motherly one. But that doesn't mean she has to fall into this default, well-mannered character. Live action Katara never gets mad, and this is so evident in the last episodes when she's supposed to challenge Master Pakku to a battle because of how sexist he is. I just can't believe that this Katara would challenge Master Pakku to a battle. She just doesn't have enough rage in her to do that. I mean, look at the comparison in the animated series where she's seething with rage and acts on it. And even when she's beaten down, her rage keeps her going. Her rage isn't just a flaw, it's a part of her. It's what makes her defy the sexist culture that's around her. Aang. Aang's flaw in the animated series is that he just wants to be a kid and doesn't want the responsibility of being the Avatar. We see this as soon as he wakes up. He doesn't tell Katara or Sokka who he is or why he was in the iceberg, and immediately wants to go sledding with penguins. He's very childish, and this is just put at the forefront. But because of this childish act, the Fire Nation finds him and starts burning down the Water Tribe's village. We see that Aang's lack of responsibility will get people hurt. In the live action, Aang doesn't really grow at all. We have this first scene where he verbally says he wants to be a kid and he runs away from the air nomads. But as soon as he's out of the ice, he decides he's going to be the Avatar. Never struggling with wanting to be a kid or trying to have fun. This is like the whole point of the first season. Aang was written as a 12-year-old because of this reason. Why did this show even make him a young kid if he wasn't going to struggle with the responsibilities of being the Avatar? Aang was probably the biggest disappointment in the show, and honestly, I think it was just because he had no flaws. He didn't really grow, and his only motivation was trying to be the Avatar. It was just kind of unrelatable. No 12-year-old just takes up the task of trying to save the world and has no other issues. But this is a good lesson for storytellers. Having your character's struggles only be in how good they are with their abilities just isn't enough. Yes, it's still a good struggle to have. Watching Katara grow from barely being able to control water and seeing her take on a master is amazing. But watching her struggle with her rage and make hard choices because of it is so much more interesting. And giving people flaws help break them out of stereotypes. Katara was created to be the heart of the group. Timid, calm, the person who always makes the decisions out of love. Giving the heart character a temper changes everything. She's still the one with the most hope, still the one who thinks with her heart instead of logic, but it's because she thinks with her heart that rage can take over so quickly. Watching the live action series just makes me appreciate the animated series so much more. Again, if you haven't seen it, please go watch it. Other than removing character flaws, the show wasn't as bad as it could have been. It was pretty good, and I'm not going to sit here and nitpick every single detail that could have been done differently. It is what it is. These are just my general thoughts. I don't think the show's going to attract any new fans, and I think the old fans are just going to settle with watching the animated series instead. I will continue to watch this show if it keeps coming out with more seasons, just because I am a sucker for remakes and reboots. There's just something alluring to seeing these creatures in this world be brought to live action. Like, I can't wait to see the swamp in season 2. They better have the swamp in season 2. Am I part of the problem as to why studios keep making terrible remakes? Probably. I think that's all I have to say on the topic. This was a pretty short video. I just wanted to give some general ideas of what I thought about the show. I hope you guys enjoyed. And unless Universal decides to surprise me with a Harry Potter reboot next month, next video will be about magic systems. I'm planning on a 3-video series, I think. Hope to see you nerds there, and have a great day. And watch Avatar. Now you throw rocks. That was so much water.
That was good though. It's a lot. Stop smiling.